let's look at the debacle that is the Conservative Party, with the word Conservative being the most egregious assault on the Trade Descriptions Act we've ever seen. In many ways, the truly catastrophic Conservative campaign, which started with a rain-soaked Rishi Sunak drowned out by the new Labour anthem, "Things Can Only Get Better," was proof, if you needed it, that this was a party in disarray and running out of steam. Former cabinet ministers like Suella Braverman conceding defeat before the vote even happened. War veterans insulted when Sunak absconded early from the D-Day celebrations. He was in a hurry then, but now he's got all the time in the world. Tory MPs started betting on their own demise. It was a disaster from start to finish. If politics is about messaging, then the message from the Conservatives was "don't vote for us." Ultimately, it's their record in office that did for them in this race. It started a long time ago with Theresa May, then Home Secretary under David Cameron, saying that they would get immigration down to the tens of thousands. Voters were ignored, and last year the figure for legal net migration was 700,000. That is a city the size of Leeds in a year. Boris Johnson had an extraordinary mandate in 2019, and to be fair to him, he got Brexit across the line, which was a huge achievement, and he kept Jeremy Corbyn out of number 10, for which history will judge him kindly. But just about everything else we've seen over the last 14 years, those failed and ruinous lockdowns, mask mandates and vaccine tyranny, sky-high taxes, soaring debt, an ever-expanding state, wokery in our public institutions, raging inflation, a depleted military, all of those things might easily have happened under self-declared socialist Sir Keir Starmer. Which is why it's no surprise that the millions of people who lent their vote to the Conservatives in 2019 because they wanted conservatism chose to take it back last Thursday with interest. After all, if you went to a pizza restaurant and were served chicken tikka masala, you'd be entitled to complain too. Well, the chickens have come home to roost. The public have told the Tories that they're foul and that they can cluck off. Now, despite my misgivings about the party itself, and in particular that 3-year experiment in communism during COVID, in which we paid people who are perfectly healthy to stay at home, I have always admired Rishi Sunak. In his short 18 months in charge, he unlocked Brexit with the Windsor Agreement, which won the blessing of the DUP and restored power sharing in Northern Ireland. He faced down the striking unions, defeated inflation, and took a more measured approach to net zero. Sunak has left the UK with low unemployment, record investment, a robust manufacturing sector, which is now number 8 in the world, having just leapfrogged France. We've gone from number 7 in the world to number 4 for exports globally. And we currently enjoy the highest growth in the G7, even beating America. Plus, Sunak got the Rwanda plan through Parliament, which was the only serious measure to stop the boats, and which the Irish government have already said is working. Now, as you've just heard in the bulletin from Tatiana, after just minutes in office, Starmer has scrapped the Rwanda plan. The criminal gangs will be celebrating this weekend. Things can only get better for them. So whilst I backed Sunak as the best CEO of the country against Starmer, his solid tenure has been too little too late at the fag end of 14 years of patchy Tory rule. Ultimately, by consistently ignoring their own voters, the Tories have gone from being the natural party of government to the natural party of opposition. It's a cruel irony that the 4 million people who voted Reform UK because of unchecked immigration, sky-high taxes and tedious political correctness have brought about a Labour government with a huge majority who will, I assume, do all of those things that they don't like times 100. Democracy is a funny old thing. But this is now an existential moment for the most successful political party in the history of Western democracy. The party of Robert Peel, Winston Churchill and Margaret Thatcher. Because breathing down their neck is the charismatic Nigel Farage, whose superpower isn't in fact oratory or sound bites, but his willingness to listen to and address the concerns of millions of ordinary Brits. With Labour hoping to gerrymander the next election with votes for 16-year-olds and even potentially EU citizens, the Tories recovering ground in 5 years' time will not be enough. But the combined vote share of the Conservatives and Reform is higher than that enjoyed by Labour this week. Do the math. The Conservatives must be Conservative again, potentially helped on that journey by Reform UK. And despite of his hatred of the Tories, it's in Nigel Farage's best interests, if he wants to avoid a decade of Labour in power, to work with whoever leads the Tories. The bottom line is that the right must unite or die.